We got proof again this week that no matter how small the amount of money, if you give people an opportunity to try to beat the system, they will try. Case in point, the Government of Canada's tax-free savings accounts. The initial thinking was that with the contribution limit at just $5,000, it didn't need to be a whole lot of regulation about how the accounts were managed because there wasn't so much money on the line. But the Canada Revenue Agency said this week some people have been day trading inside these accounts. Other people have been buying shares of companies they already control to try to grow those assets in a tax-free account. That is not what the accounts were intended for. So the CRA says it is asking for $75 million back from taxpayers as a result of audits. This is proof that you can't escape taxes even when you're trying to do it with something called a tax-free account. This is Bloomberg North. Good evening, I'm Pat Kiernan. Canada has the best reputation of any country in the world. This is according to the Reputation Institute, which measures people's perceptions of countries and companies around the world. Canada's strengths include being a safe place, being an ethical country, and having an effective government. But what does that mean to Canadian business? Daniel Tisch is President and CEO of Argyle Public Relations, the Reputation Institute's Canadian partner. Dan, who's the intended audience for this survey?
Well, the intended audience, I think, would be a combination of governments and business people. It's essentially leaders in all sectors. And I think what the study shows very powerfully is that there's a real economic value to reputation. And it's an asset that has to be measured, it has to be managed. And it's an asset, fortunately for Canadians, that we seem to have in spades, more so in perceptions of people in other countries about our environment, how we are as people, and the quality of our governance, more so than the quality of our business, although business gets a very good rating too.
Anything jump out at you as you're looking at these numbers, either that really puts Canada over the top into the top tier on reputation, or the other way around, that might drag Canadians down more than they expect?
Well, where we're number one, Pat, is we're number one in the world in the study, and this is the largest reputation study in the world, 39,000 people in the G8 countries. And where we're number one is as a place to live, as a place to visit, and as a place to study. Where we're somewhere between number 4 and number 6 is a place to, I think we're number 4 as a place to invest, and number 6 as a place to buy products from. So that's the area where it's very, very competitive. And our greatest competitors on the economic front are the countries of Scandinavia, as well as Switzerland, Japan, and Germany. So it's really competitive out there, but without question, Canada's in a really good position. The other thing that strikes me, Pat, is that Canadians, surprisingly to me as a Canadian, we're number one in the world in terms of our internal self-image. And so if you look at Canada versus the US, where you're located right now, Canada and the US have had a bit of a role reversal in that Canadians are feeling better about their own country than Americans are about theirs.
Yeah, this side of the border, there's a little bit of disagreement about things these days. Let's talk about that, the U.S. reputation versus the Canadian reputation. What is it about the U.S. that causes it to not rank as high as countries like Canada, like Sweden, like Switzerland, which have all been at the top of this survey in the past 5 years?
Yeah. Well, the area where the U.S. has struggled the most in the last year is perceptions by people in other countries of the quality of its government. And I guess that won't be a huge surprise, given all the news. And not just the news, but also the actions, right? When there are trade wars threatened and potential instability, that naturally makes investors less likely to want to invest. That makes businesses less likely to buy and people less likely to visit. And so it's definitely had an impact. But what's really interesting about the U.S. is America retains a huge asset in public perceptions around the world about the quality of its companies, of its brands, of its products. And so if you're an American business right now, what you probably want to do as a result of this data is really invest even more in the marketing of those assets and obviously trying to do your best to explain the governance challenges.
Dan, let's turn this back to Canada to finish up here. If you're a Canadian business, How do you capitalize on something like this? There's this goodwill around the world. Do you try to win business to people to say, hey, this is a place that you can invest in and count on the fact that what you invest in today is what's going to be the landscape tomorrow as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a huge opportunity for all stakeholders in Canada. And the thing about earning and keeping a good reputation, it's not just about marketing. It's about tangible actions. It's about the environment that's created. It's about communication, and it's about partnerships. And so I think the message here is that governments at all levels, local, provincial, federal, and businesses, the chambers of commerce and individual business leaders themselves, have to collaborate to try to portray a consistent image of Canada in the world. If you're a business, very clearly though, you can use this study as an example and perhaps as a proof point that this is a great place for foreigners to invest, because it reflects Canada's status as a safe country, as an ethical country, a country where the rule of law continues to reign, and where people are welcoming, so that your workers will feel welcome here.
Nice to get that bit of good news after the Canada Day weekend. Dan Tisch, good to have you with us. Thank you for joining us. Daniel Tisch is President and CEO of Argyle Public Relations, talking about the Reputation Institute's survey. Still ahead on Bloomberg North. My picks of the week, including a surge in production of electric cars. And also ahead, we'll talk about an innovation center putting healthcare at the forefront. I'll speak to the CEO of IBM Canada after the break. Welcome back. Time for Pat's Picks. 5 of my favorite business stories of the week. First, a glitch in the system caused some panic for investors this week. Test data was mistakenly added to some popular financial websites, among them Google Finance, Yahoo Finance, and some Bloomberg sites. That caused some incorrect stock quotes. Twitter user Scott Sanchez shared these images of Amazon shares seemingly plummeting 87%, while Microsoft soared 79%. Both were set to exactly the same value, which would have been your clue that something was wrong, $123.47 US. NASDAQ admitted that it had a hand in this. It said that it was sending test data as part of a normal process. NASDAQ said third parties weren't supposed to propagate that data. Propagate was their word, whatever that means. They stressed that no trades were affected by this. Canadian credit unions say they are put at a disadvantage if they can't describe what they do to possible customers. An advisory came out from the Office of the Superintendent of Financial Institutions last week. It stressed that financial service providers like credit unions that aren't banks cannot use the word bank. They can't use the word banker. They can't use the word banking when describing the banking services they offer. Credit unions are not-for-profit institutions. They are owned by their members. Traditionally, they offer services that you would think of as banking. Checking account, savings account, loans, credit cards. How else could you describe those services? Do they say that they're money storers? Do they say that they're big safe providers? Home buying helpers? The Canadian Credit Union Association points out that they've been using the words bank and banking to describe what they do for years without penalty. They say the regulator's new position is inconsistent with past practice and inconsistent with common sense. Tesla is going to start producing cars that more of the world can afford. Starting tomorrow, the Model 3 will be Tesla's most affordable vehicle, $35,000 US, in line with the average new car price in the industry. The car was revealed this spring. There's what it looks like. Tesla plans to ramp up production in a hurry. They plan to make 100 cars in August, 1,500 in September. By December, they'll be making 20,000 of them. An ambitious target, as it's almost as many vehicles as the company has delivered quarterly over the past year. Tesla, not the only company making a play for the electric car market this week. Volvo announced that as of 2019, it will go entirely electric.
We are determined to be the first premium car maker to move our entire portfolio of vehicles into electrification. This is a clear commitment towards reducing our carbon footprint, as well as contributing to a better air quality in our cities.
There was a posting from the company on Twitter. By 2019, Volvo vows that all of its new models will be either hybrid or fully electric, and by 2025, the company says it will have made its last fully gasoline or diesel car. As the electric car industry grows up, the motorcycle industry is seeing a downturn. A Bloomberg report this week showed motorcycle sales fell 41% in 2009. Obviously, the recession was at play there. But even as the economy got better, sales did not pick up to where they had been in the early 2000s. So motorcycle companies began changing their marketing strategies, focusing on getting first-time riders. The Honda Rebel 500 and the Kawasaki Ninja 300 are priced at less than $7,000 US, and bike brands are hoping this is the kind of product that gets new riders hooked on the motorcycle culture. Harley Davidson now selling 9 different models under $12,000, and when they break down the payments to about $6 a day, the company's marketing chief is telling potential buyers, skip the latte and buy a bike. Idea incubation centers nurturing new technology and entrepreneurs are popping up all around the country. One IBM innovation space in Hamilton has partnered with Hamilton's Health Research to look into new ideas for healthcare. The social robot HitchBot has been working out of this facility, undergoing clinical trials to assist with mental health initiative. IBM Canada's president, Dino Trevisani, is with me to talk about what else is happening in the Innovation Center. Dino, are these Innovation Centers a business themselves, or is this just a way to build relationships with a company that will eventually do business with you?
Well, it's not a business per se. It's basically a collaboration between IBM and Hamilton Health Sciences, really to bring innovation to the forefront and be able to actually implement it in the hospital network and deliver real value back to the patient. So that's what we're excited about, and we have a great collaborator partner with Hamilton Health Sciences, who are extremely focused on bringing real value and change for the healthcare industry.
So Dino, the idea here with these innovation centers is really to provide an environment where they can get the support they need as relatively young companies. One of the stated goals of this is to give companies an opportunity to stay in Canada rather than immediately go chasing talent and funding in the U.S. market. How successful have you been with that?
Absolutely. That is our vision and our objective. When I came back to Canada a couple of years ago to lead IBM Canada, that's one of the things that I saw was a government that was very supportive of new business and academia, doing all they can and wonderful things in graduating entrepreneurial students. But what we needed to do was play a role as a multinational company to help these startups get access to a global market. And I saw that as a way of allowing them to grow in the country and create opportunity without having to leave the country, because they have a partner like IBM that can bring their innovation and technology to the global market. But also things like Hamilton Health Sciences, our innovation exchange, we're able to bring innovation from around the world to Hamilton Health Sciences and our innovation exchange environment, and have these entrepreneurs enhance and deliver even more technology. And we believe the more incubators, the more entrepreneurs and startups in that environment will just reinforce the build of an industry that differentiates itself globally, and that's really the objective.
So Hamilton is focused on healthcare. Your other innovation centers in Canada do what?
Well, we have the Innovation Boulevard in BC, which is a focus on healthcare, but specifically on more of devices. And then we have our incubator in Calgary. We just opened with our very own Arlene Dickinson, District Ventures, focused on really broadening the market beyond oil and gas and promoting entrepreneurs to start new businesses in that environment. And then we have our incubators that we built in Toronto. So we have a wonderful incubator, 185 Spadina. We have over 20 companies there. And then at our headquarters, we took the whole first floor and we put in over 30 companies. We did that in conjunction with Venture Labs. So we're really collaborative. We're not trying to create a particular brand. We're trying to promote the building of business and really to give them access to our technologies, which many of these startups would never be able to afford themselves, and also our people. We're giving them access to our people, and you know, it helps us too, because we impact our own culture within IBM.
Dino, let's talk a little bit more broadly about the company. Is what IBM is doing in Canada consistent with what's happening in the rest of the world, or are there some unique challenges in the Canadian market in 2017?
Well, we are really a leader in innovation. You know, here in Canada, we have over 3,800 developers. IBM's the largest development lab in the world right here. So the corporation really looks to us to be leading edge and bring innovation and new ideas. And so this is quite new for the IBM Corporation, and it's being tested out in Canada. And we're very proud to be able to do that. And so that's exciting for us. There's many other things we've done here. In fact, a little known fact, this is our 100-year anniversary at IBM. And the name International Business Machines did in fact come out of Canada.
It's it's one of those names that's been around for so long. I think it's as relevant as ever to say International Business Machines, and but we of course always know it as IBM. Dino, I think I managed to twist your name around at the top. Trevisani is correct, right?
Yeah, perfectly fine. They can,
Good.
you know.
Good to have you with us, Dino. Thanks for joining us to talk a little bit about IBM's innovation centers. Still ahead, 103-year-old textbook company approaching education in the digital age. We talked to their CEO after the break. The way kids learn has changed a lot over the years. Smart boards and laptops have replaced chalkboards and notebooks, and parent-teacher interaction often happens via email or even video chat. When your company, whose business it is to make textbooks, you might look at moving in a different direction. That's exactly what Nelson has been trying to do as it innovates. The company CEO, Steve Brown, joins me now. Steve, I wish I'd paid more attention in like grade 2. But I'm pretty sure my math textbooks in Calgary were Nelson books. Is that plausible?
It's absolutely plausible, Pat. It's so interesting for me to go out and into schools and on college campuses and talk to professors who are, getting on in the years, talking to me about how they learned on our textbooks, and here we are doing the same thing. And it's so great to hear them talk so warmly about us. Our brand is really well recognized and respected.
My kids often don't have a textbook for something like math because there's so much material accessible online. But I find as a parent that I miss the textbook because in the textbook I can go in and say, okay, here's the page that had the lesson on it, and here's the page with the exercise on it, and we can sort of reconstruct something that they may have missed in class. I feel like sometimes the traditional textbook isn't a bad thing, and maybe we've gotten ahead of ourselves in trying to phase some of these things out.
Well, I think it's really interesting because when you go across the spectrum of students and then you talk about professors or teachers, principals, it's really a broad spectrum. The user of digital resources and the user of the physical resources are often one in the same. It's just where they are in their learning journey. I have a daughter who's at McGill, just finished her first year, and she loves the physical textbook. I have a son at 16 who's going into 11th grade, and he's all about digital. And it really transcends generations. I agree that parents, we like to look and see and follow it, but really we look at this as Nelson today, and we look at our 103-year lineage, and I keep telling everybody, that's not our choice. That's the consumer's choice. We're about the content, about the learning mechanisms, about that lifelong journey and the relationship with the student and the educational community. And they can choose any way. We're ambiguous to that. We really don't care. To us, it's about the content, and it's about those student outcomes that we really measure ourselves on.
Steve, you used to have a lot more made in Canada educational publishers you were competing with. One by one, they've been acquired or gone out of business. As one of the last players standing here, is that an advantage, or is it a sign that the industry is shrinking?
Well, it's interesting because the industry really isn't shrinking. You see educational budgets go up every year by about 5%, but what people focus on are what they believe are buggy whip companies. When they look at educational publishers, they don't realize that, again, we're agnostic to the content. So we've been very fortunate to position ourselves and to align with some great companies, both in technology as well as the core that we do every day, which is the educational publishing. But we've also involved technologists, we've involved people writing script, to sit on digital platforms to make those learning experiences more immersive. So people who haven't made those changes in the marketplace and readjusted and repivoted, those are the ones that have gone away. We bought a couple of them, but I would tell you in our recent M&A activity, we bought as many technology companies as we have competitors. So it's about the melding of the new world and the old world and putting it together, and the measure really is educational outcome and that immersive technology you can bring about by taking technology and textbooks together to make the experience beneficial to learning outcome.
Is the new world harder? I mean, now instead of a once-a-year new edition of a book, you've got the ability to change content all the time. It doesn't mean you should change content all the time, but is that digital space harder to be in because of the expectations of forever being at the forefront?
I don't know that a new world's ever harder. I think it's just different. I think that with the onslaught of the digital era, and many industries before us have gone through this journey too. You know, there are pioneers and there are settlers, and you have to decide what you want to be. At Nelson, we're all about the outcome. We're all about working with students. But I don't know that it's any harder. What we're trying to do, we're launching a product right now. September this year, we're launching a product which really sees the cross-section of those two, the cross-section of technology and device, with amazing software with some world-class partners. But the core of that product, and the product's called Edwin, and we call it Edwin for educational win. The core of the product is the world-class content. And like many other companies and many other industries who've gone through change, content's often king. It's like, well, how do you measure Apple? Are they a computer company? Are they a device company? Are they a content delivery company? And as long as you're world-class in everything you do, and that's our mantra at Nelson, to be world-class, to make sure we're measured not against publishing, not against education, but world-class companies around the world. And when we reach that journey, then we'll really be able to change things. But in education, you've got a distinct measure. And we're pushing beyond educational outcomes and report cards in school, and then how people graduate through university, their GPAs as they go on to graduate, higher education, going on into their MBAs. Because ultimately we believe that if we can make that educational journey more in-depth, more prescriptive, more understanding, more immersive, eventually what we will do is not only change education, but we'll change gross domestic product. And that's our true measure. To get Canada ranked number 5 in the world currently in education stakes, right up to number 1, and drive GDP by what we're doing, bringing technology and educational publishing together.
Yeah, a lot of opportunities, and really it is a partnership with a company like Nelson and the teachers in every province in Canada. Steve, good to talk to you about this. Steve Brown is the CEO of Nelson, with us to talk about the educational publishing business in Canada. Let's finish tonight with this. A robot at the ready. A restaurant called Cali Burger will be introducing a new line cook. Have a look at Flippy, a robotic kitchen assistant invented by Miso Robotics. Flippy will be making burgers at Cali Burger's Los Angeles location starting early in 2018. This is a robot that uses artificial intelligence and automation to cook the burgers, to flip the burgers, and apply cheese and an appropriate amount of sauce or any other topping. The artificial intelligence also allows Flippy to learn new recipes as menus change. Workers may fear being replaced by technology, but one investor in Flippy says this is just the next level of efficiency. He compares it to what the early spreadsheets like VisiCalc and Lotus 123 did for the accounting business. That's Bloomberg North for tonight. Thanks for watching. See you again next week.